In this video, we're going to take it a step further. So we're not only going to be approximating square roots between which two whole numbers like we did in the previous one, we're now going to take it a step further. And here are the two questions that you could also see. Which value or whole number is the non-perfect square closer to, or approximate the value of? So if you see these two questions, you're going to take the steps that we did in the previous video. So you need your square roots, your perfect squares and square root list. You also need to understand and watch the video about how to approximate the non-perfect square between the two whole numbers that I went through in the previous video again. And then this one, we're going to take it a step further and figure out which whole number is it actually closer to. So yes, it falls between 2 and 3, but which whole number is it closer to? Is it closer to 2 or is it closer to 3? So I'm going to walk you through and do some guided practice on that. So again, to start things off, we have figured out that the square root of 6 falls between the square root of 4 and the square root of 9 by looking at my perfect squares list. Okay, and I noticed that using my perfect squares list, 6 is going to fall right here between 4 and 9, and the whole numbers are 2 and 3. So I wrote it out visually so y'all can kind of see the balance. It's going to fall between the numbers 2 and 3, but the next step is to figure out whether it is closer to 2 or is it closer to 3. So I'm going to do some math. So I'm going to look at the distance or the difference between 4 and 6. So as I look at these two numbers, okay, I know that 6 minus 4 is 2. Okay, whereas 6, the difference or distance between 6 and 9, or 9 minus 6, is 3. Okay, so yes, it falls between the numbers 2 and 3, but because this difference or distance is smaller, the square root of 6 is closer to 2 than it would be being 3. So like 2.2, 2.3, 2.4, somewhere around those lines. It's not going to be like 2.8 because that would be closer to 3. So 2 is what's going to be closer to. Okay, and I know you guys don't have these calculators at home, but if I type in the square root of 6, you will see that it's 2.4. So it's closer to the whole number 2 than it would be the whole number 3. And again, I say that because if I have 2.4 and thinking about decimals, 2.4 is closer to this end than it would be 3, because the decimals that would round up to 3 would be 2.5, 2.6, 2.7, 2.8, 2.9. So it's closer to the 2 end than it is the 3. Okay, let's go over another one. So the square root of 2, yes, it does. Number 2, the square root of 18. Yes, it falls between the numbers, the whole numbers 4 and 5. And again, I got that because on my perfect square list, 18, the square root of 18, falls between the square root of 16 and the square root of 25, because 18 is between 16 and 25, which means that those whole numbers or those values are 4 and 5. Now I need to figure out between which two. Yes, it's 4 and 5, but now which one is it closer to? So again, I'm going to do the distance or difference. So between 16 and 18, that difference is 2. Okay, and between 25 and 18, that difference or distance is 7. Okay, so the square root of 18 is closer to the square root of 16, which is 4. Okay, and again, if I was to type that into the calculator, the square root of 18 does happen to be 4.2. So it's closer to the 4 end than it is going to 5. And again, I'm doing this without yes, we're using the calculator to check our work, but this section is going to end up on your calculator inactive section on the EOG. So really make sure that you understand these steps and doing it without the calculator. Okay, number 3, we have the square root of 112. I walked you through how it falls between these two square roots, and it's between the whole numbers 10 and 11. Now we are taking it a step further and figuring out which one it is closer to. Okay, so the difference or distance between 100 and 112 is 12. And the distance or difference between 112 and 121 is 9. So you will see on this example, the square root of 112 is closer to 11 than it would be 10. Okay, so if I type in the square root of 112 in my calculator, I get 10.58, which is going to round that up to 10.6. So it's closer to 11 than it would be 10. Okay, number 4, I need to figure out the distance or the difference between 81 and 88, because again, I took all the steps to find out between the two whole numbers that the square root of 88 lands between. Now we need to figure out which one it is closer to. So if I take 88 minus 81, I'm going to get 7. And then the difference or distance between 100 and 88 is 12. Okay, so the square root of 88 is closer to 9 than it would be 10, because 7 is the distance versus 12. So it's closer to 9 than it would be 10. Okay, on number 5, we have the square root of 66. So the difference between 66 and 64 happens to be 2. And the distance between 81 and 66, or the difference, is 15. So the square root of 66 is closer to 8 than it would be 9. Okay, now as we dive into the next one, the last one, square root of 55, you need to find the difference or distance between 49 and 55, which is 6. And 64 minus 55 is 9. So the square root of 55 is closer to 7 than it is 8. Okay, so I hope this video helped you in not only figuring out between which two whole numbers the non-perfect square falls between, but also which one it is closer to. So again, we do all the steps like you find between which two whole numbers, and you got to take it a step further and find the difference or distance between the non-perfect square and the perfect squares that fell between, and then whichever one is shorter or less, that is the whole number is going to be closer to. Again, I hope this video helps, and if you need me, just reach out.